being so confused. You feel like you're more fucked up than the lies on the evening news. Well, just step right in. We can talk about it all as friends. And if you want, we can hug and kiss and make up for the party ends. Agree or disagree, start Unfriend me. 'Cause I'm everything you want, damn sure what you need. I won't tell no lies, back up on the facts be true. And if you can't get down with that, you must be somebody's dog.
Hey, Hogs Twins here. Check out our friend Matthew Spirit at his podcast at The Dumb Show and his website, don'tunfriendme.com. Yeah.
Good morning, don't unfriend me, Nate.
Good morning, everybody. You know, we tried to have an intro this morning, but that didn't work. So it's the Don't Unfriend Me show / Matt and Mike morning. What?
Matt and Mike in the morning. Need a little more coffee?
I think so. I'm going to take.
You can have some of mine.
I'm going to take a sip. Since you're a Marine that doesn't drink coffee.
I am one of the weirdest Marines you're going to find. That's just how it works. Just never really got into coffee. I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's okay. Everyone has the right to be fascist. You know, it's their choice. So, what did you? I mean, what did you do? What did you do when you were overseas? And you know, you have a choice between water and coffee.
So we did water, and I don't know. I've always been this way. I can just wake up, and as soon as my eyes open up, I'm awake. I'm ready to go, and I get moving. So I just never needed it.
You're weird.
Yes.
Should we take
now finding this out?
Should we take a call from the healthcare office? They want to talk. I think my tooth is in my replacement tooth. I had an extraction done a couple. I don't know, something ago. So here's the deal. Spreely, we're working out the bugs. Okay. Spreely's identifying how to get all these shows on at the same time, and I don't know if we're broadcasting. I don't think we are. Even though we have a slot, and even though we're supposed to be broadcasting, it's not. It's gonna take some time. The great news is that we have our established audience on Facebook and YouTube and Rumble. And last night was awesome. I mean, we had a metric shit ton of people on, and of course, we had some of the groypers from Nick Fuentes. Those guys come on again, and you know, dare I say, last night, in my opinion, was at least a conversation that I'm not ashamed of having versus some of the other ones. And you know, I think what people don't understand about not trolls, because I wouldn't call the groypers trolls because they've got a purpose, is that their job is to get people's goats. And the funny thing is, you didn't see it last night. So Olivia and Alexander were going head to head, and they didn't, you know, Olivia was just like, she said maybe 2 words. And of course he's like, well, that's because your husband is, you know, a controlling, you know, douche, which is all true, of course.
Of course. Why would that not be?
It couldn't possibly be that she doesn't like you, right? You being Alexander. Yes. That's impossible. Of course, she loves him.
Everybody loves him.
Right.
Obviously.
And Olivia's like, she leans over to me. She's like, this guy's a pretentious douchebag, and I'm not going to give him any time of the day. But in the end, what was funny is when we were going to go and get some yogurt and watch some show, she pulls off her headphones and she goes, I kind of liked him, but I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of telling him that, because he even called her, you know, the B word. And, you know, they were going off on each other. They called her a bitch. I can say that, right? And at the end, she's like, I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction, but if he calls in again, I'll be nicer to him. But you know, she's playing the role and of the pissed off wife and emotional wife, but. That woman's been with me for 25 years. She can take her hits, and she can bring it when she wants to. Anyway, let's see who's on this morning. It's early. Tracy is on. Tracy, good morning. Grand Rising, all armor on. Good to have you. What are we talking about today, Mike?
So we're going to talk about the shooting in Maine, and then the Republicans finally getting their act together and getting a new speaker.
Yeah. So give you some insight on that. Michelle, good morning. Welcome to the Ark. We are all floating away. Yeah, it's kind of the truth, isn't it?
Does it seem like 10 o'clock is actually a better start time for everybody?
I think so. Numbers aren't there, but that's just going to take some time. I think we're 5x5 on Rumble and YouTube. I think a lot of it's the algorithm. Whether we start at 9 o'clock, whether we start at 10 o'clock, there's a certain ramp up to this to get everybody notified that we're on. Mm-hmm. We're going to find out. It just may be that we just have to find our sweet spot. But I have a sneaking suspicion that 9:30 is the sweet spot, but we'll find out. Good morning, Amy. Eddie, you got the topics. You're happy now. Lee, good morning. Lee, how are you feeling about the Buffalo Sabres? Are you happy with their performance thus far, or not? Let me know.
Is that your superstition now, that you'll loosely talk about hockey, but not that deep into it?
Yeah.
Because as a Capitals fan, I can talk as much as I want because I know we're either going to completely suck or we're getting knocked out first round. We have our one championship. I got to wait 30 years for the next one.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to look forward to.
Well, when you're the Stanley Cup favorite, you want to do whatever you can, not to
jinx yourself.
It's not bragging if it's true, right? Yeah. So my Astros, everyone's like, the Astros have fallen off. I'm like, dude, they went to the ALCS Game 7.
Actually, did we give you a minute to say your condolences for the Astros?
No, I don't need it. No, because listen, 2 World Series championships, 7 ALCSs, division. I don't. It's a dynasty. It's a dynasty. I don't know what else to say. And if anyone thinks they're not going to be back next year, that's incredible. Obviously, there's some things they need to do. They did not have a great year and still made it to the ALCS. They're probably 1 or 2 pitching rotations away, and one strong cleanup hitter that doesn't choke. I think they're gonna lose a couple players who deserve to go, and those are high value targets that they're going to be trading but didn't perform. And they've got to figure out their home woes, and they did this in 2019. So Astros, hey, it's hockey season. Hockey season is what I live for. I love baseball, but yeah, I mean the Avs are picked to win it all. And
I do got to know, did you already send your feedback into the Astros of what they need to do for the offseason? And
yeah, they called me.
Like, hey,
it's a good call. Yeah, they called me, and I told them. And Dusty Baker's like, hey, Matt, I have a question for you. And I said, I don't fucking want to hear it. You need to retire. And then he announced his retirement 2 days ago. So
when are they going to call and ask you to go manage?
I think that listen, I've got this. I mean, there's so many gin joints in the world. I mean, I've got to be selective on what I do. And the Astros, I mean, it's average. It's just I really don't want to talk about my personal career, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you asking. You don't need to be a dick, right? I mean, it's way too early. You may need to start drinking coffee.
It's 10
I think you need some coffee.
It is
yes,
10 o'clock. It's not that early.
It is 10 o'clock, but you're kind of cranky. Do you need a Snickers bar?
No, you know what my favorite thing is. Snickers.
Yeah, but we can't do that on camera.
No.
So
that's fair.
That's I mean, I don't know. Maybe we could get an OnlyFans account. I heard they're making good money.
It's only Nubs.
Only Nubs. Do they have a Nub site like
they don't,
Nubsingles? We need to start Nubsingles.com. Missing your limbs. Visiting Nubs.com. Yeah, dude.
Do you want great parking?
Do I want right?
Parking,
do you never want to walk to the front door of your favorite retail shop and have to wait for a parking spot? There's a positive. What else? You only have to wash the sheets half the time. You flip them and they're clean on the other side.
Well, see, for me, you got to clean them more because the dogs, they have space because obviously I don't have my legs, so that bottom third they could sleep. Right. However, they choose to sleep on my wife. So for that fact.
Dogs as in woof woof, not dogs as in your feet.
Correct. Yeah.
So you basically just completely abandoned all the euphemisms and analogies and metaphors that we were making about legs and switched to something completely off topic. Like I was locked and loaded. I had at least 10 ready to go, and then you switched to dogs, which was a complete head fake because I'm like, dogs are feet. Okay, he's going somewhere, and you know what?
Listen, what? I like to get you after game a little bit because then
it's
it'll
my
be
fault.
like a 2-hour conversation on no legs.
Right. Right, because I'm the one that brought up Harry Potter, and we had 45 minutes. Some guy, did you see what some jackass did the other day? He's like, dude, Harry Potter, bro. We didn't, dude. World War III is gonna start. The world is in crisis, and you freaking dorks are talking about Harry Potter, and I'm.
Yeah, because we like a little enjoyment in our life.
Yeah, well, I found his address. I mean. I'm going to drive there, and I'm going to have to drive him, and then I'm going to pick him up and carry him to your front door, and then I'm going to hold you down while he kicks your ass. No, what I said was, and it was pretty simple. Hey, this guy just got back from multiple deployments. He's seen an incredible amount of shit in his life. He's a double amputee. He has went through TBI and depression and other things like most vets do coming home from this shit. And if he wants to talk about cupcakes and rainbow fucking Sprite, we're going to do that if it keeps him in a good spot. So why don't you go F yourself?
If they had some sprinkled crayons I could put on the cupcakes.
Dude, wouldn't that be amazing? Like your favorite day has to be St. Patrick's Day because you're just like, Mom, green crayon. I've got it. It's my day.
That's every day. Why are you trying to just put it down to one day?
Bliss text. Is that green or more aquamarine? Okay, let's get to it. We can't do this again. So let's focus, right? And it's important to me to get to know everybody. I don't want a serious show where we're always just talking about politics and the drudgery. I like the 15, 20 minutes of just kind of seeing what's going on with everybody and everything else. Technical difficulties, Dottie says. Sorry, Dottie. Drinking my third cup of Moab
What's
coffee.
Moab? Oh,
What's Moab?
I'm not a coffee guy. You gotta enlighten me.
You know, I try.
Other than, is it Folgers?
Is Moab Folgers? No. Moab is a wonderful brand of coffee made by the Don't Unfriend Me show that you can order along with 4 other amazing coffees at thedumbshow.com. The mother of all brews is what she's called. Right here. No, shut up. I'm doing my freaking. It's a dark roast wake up blend. And when you want to be more civilized, but still want to scorch earth, Moab, folks, the mother of all brews, available at thedumbshow.com.
See, it's almost like I set you up for that completely unknowingly.
Almost. It was almost not obnoxious. Michelle says, whoops, we just got a tornado warning. You got a tornado warning at 10 a.m.? Where the hell do you live? Mars?
This is why you don't live in the Midwest.
How can
Tornadoes,
you have
not dealing.
How can you have a? What about convection? I mean, do storms happen this early? I can understand maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, but I don't know. When you hear tornadoes, you usually think it's mid afternoon, not 10 a.m. in the morning. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm pretty sure it's going to happen whenever it wants. It doesn't need some coffee or
right. But okay,
a bang to get going.
All right, I want you just to take your freaking grenade brain and just think for a second of all the major tornadoes that have happened. How many of you heard at 10 a.m.? You wake up and you're like, oh, and like, ladies and gentlemen, a tornado just hit at 10 a.m.
On Twister, it happened all day, every day. So
yeah, but Twister's like, dude, come on. That movie was like, ugh. I'm just saying, it's changing. What? Yeah, dude, it's a tornado. Oh my God, we're all gonna die. And then her death wish. I'm like, dude, I don't understand the whole movie. Like, I hate that movie. I really do. Helen Hunt, and I'm just kind of like, go into the light, Marianne. Go be a part of the vortexing atmospheric condition and go become a part of it. I didn't understand her fascination.
I only have dealt with one tornado.
Oh, when was that?
And that's when we were training. I want to say it was Fort A.P. Hill down in Southern Virginia.
That would make sense.
It was one of those days, like there was a really bad monsoon going through. We had a bunch of tornadoes, and everybody else in my battalion went back to the barracks to get inside.
Yeah.
My platoon did not. We stayed out on our OPs because we were supposed to be doing a platoon-on-platoon attack to where our sister platoon was going to attack us, and then we'd have to repel it, get in our trucks, and fire maneuver, all that great stuff.
Right.
But, the wisdom of our leadership is like, no, you know what? This is good training. Let's stay outside with tornadoes, and let's...
Those are the people who watched a little too much Crimson Tide, right? They're like, there's a fire on the boat, or the guy has a heart attack, and they're like, nuclear drill. And the guy's like, dude, this guy's having a heart attack. He's like, in chaos is comes perfection or some BS. And I'm like, if that was my company commander, I'd pop him in the I wouldn't pop him in the nose because then I'd go to the brig. But you just are like, come on, dude, seriously, can we not G.I. Joe right now? Can we just like literally take care of the problem? Okay, so there's a tornado. You're out there running training exercises. So what was the end of the story? Is that?
So I mean, basically, we were out there all night, and thankfully, because there's AP Hill is mostly rolling hills, so the closest it got was about two. I'm going to call them two valleys, but two rolling hills over. So we weren't technically in danger, but it was close enough. It's like, all right, guys, this is really freaking stupid. That is the closest I've ever been to a tornado. So I have no idea what they do, other than probably don't stay outside when they're rolling through.
Yeah, that's the adage. Okay, someone says, is anyone else having video issues? All right, if anyone is on Spreely, you're going to have video issues. If you're having video issues on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, come back, leave, and then come back in. Understand Facebook was down last night, and their live service was shite. And by the numbers I'm seeing right now, I think it's probably still having some issues. So hang in there. You can go to Rumble. You can go to YouTube. You can go to Twitter. My new 30-inch 180-degree monitor is it coming? I'm so excited. That's for you, so you should be very excited.
Ooh, I can get my double monitor.
As a $3,000 Mac isn't good enough, you get yourself a widescreen 4K monitor too.
As a Windows guy, I appreciate all the.
You're not really a Windows guy. You're a Windows person because you don't have any other options. And Bill Gates has taken over your brain.
That's fair. And there's a lot of buttons on this thing. So
yeah, but
there's that.
But you're starting to navigate this thing fantastically. I was going to say it's you're learning quickly. You turn down the brightness on your screen without me telling you how to do it. Look at that. I'll show you another thing. Alt Tab.
Oh.
So Command and the Tab button. Hold Command and then hit Tab. Look what happens. Look at this magic. Look at all these.
Oh, there's a command button.
Yep.
I was pressing the wrong one.
Now hit Tab. Oh, you got to hold. Listen to instruction. It's just like a grenade, right? You don't go ahead and throw the
as soon as you get the pin, you throw it.
You throw the pin and you drop the grenade. Yeah. So
how do you think I got where I am?
That's right. Hold. Speaking of that company commander, he's dead. Command and then hold Command and then just hit Tab.
Yep.
Now, look at that.
And you can scroll through. Oh, look at this. See,
this is why you want a Mac, right? Because Windows. If you did this with Windows, you would get kernel panic error and it would shut down. It would literally, Windows is just like, and you're just like, what happened? It's like you took all the RAM. All right. So everyone's doing better. Okay, good. Everyone's got 5x5. All right. So let's go in. Which one do you want to do first? You want to do shooter? Do you want to talk about Turkey and Erdogan and supporting Hamas?
Oh, gosh.
Let's give that 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's think about that.
I'm going to get myself a scrolling time. You know what? This is what we're going to do. No, you know what? We're going to fix this. We're going to fix because you are horrible at time management.
Oh, I am. I'm the worst.
Yeah, right.
You have to rein me in all the time. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you being self-aware though. We're going to do this. We're going to come over here and we're going to add a cool little feature. Maybe. And there it is.
Are you going to put a little clock on there? Ooh,
yeah, dude. We're going to do a countdown clock. So you know and I know how much showtime we have from now on because
perfect.
It's too, but of course I do marine math. It's not an hour 20, it's an hour 10. It's not my first day. It's my first day, Lieutenant Dan.
Ooh, actually, funny story about that.
Okay.
Obviously, I lost my leg so I could be Lieutenant Dan. My brother, in a hunting accident, actually got shot in the butt. So for Halloween, we are the perfect Forrest Gump Lieutenant Dan. We just got to find Bubba and Jenny, and we've got the whole cast.
I'll be Bubba. But you got shrimp Creole. You got peanut butter and jelly shrimp. I could do Bubba. I could do Jenny. You want me to be Jenny? Here it is. Forrest, make love to me. Forrest, poof. I'm gone for 30 years. Forrest, my life's hard. I have hepatitis. Take me back. And here's your son, by the way. Dude, Jenny is a piece of you know what? Jenny she's the Jody of movies. She is the buddy fucker for vets overseas. And that's who that woman is. I think Jenny's the horrible human being. People are like, she was confused. No, she was a complete trash human being. who shared needles and did drugs and got hep. It wasn't AIDS. It was hepatitis. It doesn't matter. She died. I'm sick, Forrest. I'd be like, well, I'll tell you what, Jenny, unless you're going to do anal, you and I aren't going to go ahead and get back together because you're a biatch. So I'm not a big fan of, I love the movie, but Jenny just, ugh. And I don't like her politics too. Robin Wright Penn, she's a woman with 3 names. And women with 3 names are inherently dangerous. But I love Forrest Gump. I thought he was amazing. And I thought people took advantage of him, except even Lieutenant Dan. What do you think? Did Lieutenant Dan take advantage of Forrest?
I don't know. The first thing that just came to mind to me was the Lieutenant Dan band that, what's the actor's name?
Gary Sinise.
Gary Sinise, there you go.
Yeah.
That he did to actually support vets and actually
he's amazing.
took that movie and actually did something good out of it.
He's amazing.
So
Gary Sinise.
That's just where my head was.
Had a chance to meet him. He's a great human being, great foundation. Gary Sinise Foundation, give money to it. And it's no reflection. I think Lieutenant Dan maybe used Forrest because when Lieutenant Dan lost his legs, and you know what, Mike, you're going to be able to give more perspective on this than I am. But I think there might come a time, I would assume, and you can tell me, that maybe you feel insignificant or you feel lesser of a person to other people. And therefore, and I'm not trying to make this sound shallow, you surround yourself with people who make you feel stronger or restored based upon maybe their intellectual capacity or their physical capacity or whatever, because you don't want, I don't know if psychologically that's true or not, but that's what Lieutenant Dan reminded me of. He went to went to Forrest Gump. Jeez.
Like, what's on your brain?
Huge shrimp, huge, best ever. That he kind of he brought Forrest into his life. And that's why, even though he obviously cared about Forrest, I think he knew that Forrest wasn't threatening. He wouldn't necessarily judge Lieutenant Dan, that he had been there before and found himself uncomfortable with who he was in order to have the confidence. Because then the other things came. The money came, him getting married. He got the titanium legs. So it almost like he was using Forrest a little bit to kind of feel better about himself and ultimately got himself on the right path. What do you think?
So I will agree that there's probably people out there that will do that. I think it will go in a lot more of the perspective of folks that won't treat you any different, or they're not going to go and like, oh, well, you don't have legs. Like, let me do this for you, or constantly trying to do stuff rather than like, hey, I'm here to help. If you need something, let me know. But just folks that won't let that define them of like, oh, you're just that guy with no legs or that person in a wheelchair. So, and I know in my case, I went more towards military just because they understood a little bit better.
Right.
But now, like my neighbor across the street wasn't military, but very patriotic guy, did the firefighter thing. Now he's one of the best friends I have, and it's just because we can go, we work out, we hang out, we do all these things, but my injuries, he doesn't let that define anything. He doesn't keep pushing me.
Right.
So when you find folks that will do that for you, that's what you're going to be drawn to.
Yeah.
Now, in the beginning, when your mind's messed up, you don't know what's happening, you're in this whirlwind of emotions, that, yeah, I can see folks going towards that, hey, I'm going to have to use someone in order to prop myself up. But hopefully they can be self-aware, realize that, and then get to a place to where they can actually move forward and find those healthy relationships for both sides, not just the I'm going to pull because of everything that's happened.
Yeah. I take it back to high school and girls, is that, and no offense to anybody on here, because I was one of the fat kids when I was younger. But you look at a group of girls and there's like 3 or 4, 5, what you consider not pretty or larger women. And then there's that always one hot friend. And you know, you ask that question, how does that happen? Oh, she's just a nice girl. No, I don't know about that. I think there's people who have insecurities and they surround themselves with people who make you feel even superior. And the one thing I learned a long time ago is that the people who you truly care about and love, we treat the worst. And the people who treat us the worst, we seem to want to gain their acceptance more than anyone else. And it doesn't make sense. The best way to describe it is you have a dick boss and he's a jerk and he's just you sometimes change your personality or try to gain their acceptance. But then you've got some friend who you don't have to answer the phone or you don't have to text them back, and you kind of take advantage of that, even though you care about them immensely. And I think that's just human nature, right? Is that when you can get to a place where we don't try to, overall change who we are in order to impress other people, is a pretty amazing place to be. And I just, when I was thinking of the movie, I don't blame Lieutenant Dan for going to Forrest, because that was the person I think he knew would accept him completely. And that's, the most amazing scene in the world is when he's on the crow's mast and he's like challenging God to sink him. And I'm like, that's the lowest of the low. I mean, he's like, Lieutenant Dan, Lieutenant Dan, you don't have any legs. You can't swim. So
no, we can float pretty well.
If he sinks this boat, Lieutenant Dan, you're in deep shit. You're going to be your whole life's going to be like a box of chocolates at the bottom of the ocean. You're going to be dead, Lieutenant Dan. So, for him to do that, he's just like, bring it on, biatch. To me, that was like the turning point. I think as a vet, I think as people who suffer from depression or see things that we all kind of go through that turning point where we look up to the skies and call down the heavens. I know I've been there. I don't know about you. But it was just a very interesting story. And to me, the real story isn't Jenny and Forrest. I truly believe the real story, in my opinion, is Lieutenant Dan and Forrest Gump, because I think that's the one that really resonates with most people.
100%. I'm just wondering why you haven't offered me any ice cream yet. Because this...
Well, you didn't like coffee. I figured you didn't like ice cream. And I don't have any pistachio. I don't have any green ice cream. So I know you're not going to eat it. All right. So listen, perfect timing, right? Good warm up. We've got an hour left. Gives us 30 minutes to talk about, probably 45 on shooter and 15 on house speaker. Listen, quickly on Turkey and Erdogan. Turkey is it absolutely does not shock me in the least that Turkey is providing support for Hamas.
They play all the fields, because I know
Yes.
I know they have helped the Ukrainians. Obviously, they help Hamas. I don't know if they have or haven't helped Russia, but it seems like they're one of those, like, they're going to play all sides and just hope that they don't actually get drawn into anything.
Correct. And honestly, Turkey has played both sides of India and Pakistan. They're kind of like the Jerry Springer, right? All right, so you don't like Mexicans and blacks. Okay, let's see. I've got a knife, and I'll go ahead and put that right there. And let's go ahead and bring in the blacks, and let's bring in the Mexicans, and we brought in some Jews for you too. Go ahead and see what you guys can do right there. Let's go ahead, and then you put them in a situation that you're playing them against each other. And I'm going to give myself credit for the Jerry Springer impersonation. God rest his soul. Douche plow. Can't stand Jerry Springer. Guy's horrible. I think the deprivation of society started with Sodium Lights and Jerry Springer, Maury Povich, those type of, and Geraldo Rivera. I just think it allowed people to take normal conversation and turn it into a WWF match. But I digress. I think they continue to always subvert and draw distraction away from their own tyrannical rule and dictatorship in Turkey.
What year did they have that?
2000 and
was like
16 or 15. Yeah, I think. The coup d'etat, the attempted coup in Turkey. Well, maybe I should rephrase which one. Right, because this isn't 2016.
16, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so 2016 coup. And Erdogan's, well, first of all, I've talked about this with Palestine. There is no Palestine state. And Alexander and I were getting into that last night. And then I just told him, I said, dude, I can't do it. It's too late. You got it. I'm old. I'm a boomer, which I'm not, but I'll just go ahead and say it. But to get into that conversation, I mean, Palestine was an amalgamation, once the Jews were forced out, of people from Morocco and Turkey and gypsies and nomads. And it's an amalgamation of people who've left Arab states and moved into those areas. There are no Palestinians, and people, you can say whatever you want, but that's just the way it was. It was Israel's land. It's been Israel's land. And just because you force somebody out, just like it's Native American land. And if somehow Native Americans like took over, like I don't know how, but like they make a lot of bows and a lot of arrows and somehow take over the U.S. government, nobody is going to say, well, that's America's land. Those are Americans' lands. No, it certainly wasn't ours, and they took it over and reclaimed the land that they had. Now, they also killed Aztecs and Mayans and Incans and Inuits to take over the land from them. So this is a stupid conversation. It's property and rights are possession is 9/10 of the law. And if you are living in an Israel territory like Gaza or West Bank, and just because those have been annexed, that doesn't mean it's your land. It means you're being tolerated to live there. And if you continue to attack Israel, you're going to be expelled from, which is where we are right now. You're going to be expelled from the region. Come hell or high water, come bomb or come fire, you're leaving. And Turkey is obviously going to support Hamas because there's no love lost for the Jews, just like all Arab states. And he is a dictator. And it doesn't surprise me and it doesn't shock me. So everyone who's like Turkey being a part of United Nations and Turkey having a seat at the table, I believe Turkey should be completely expelled. And the only reason why Turkey is there is because they're a strategic advantage for European forces. We parked our Minuteman missiles there, and they're a strategic advantage for their Air Force base. It allows us to literally attack the eastern side of Europe, which is very difficult, and you don't have to encroach on so many airspaces when you have Turkey there. So it's a strategic advantage, and it's a relationship that I don't see getting any stronger after what's going on with Israel. So that's my take. Any take on it that you got that I missed?
Nope. Say that's pretty much it.
Okay.
You wanna head to Maine now?
No.
Not yet?
I hate Maine. By the way, dude wipes, they're the greatest thing in the world. You have an advertisement for dude wipes on there. If you don't know what dude wipes,
I do not know what dude wipes are.
Dude wipes are just like they sound, but they're built for dudes.
I mean, what's the difference?
It says dude. It says dude on it, dude. It says dude. I mean, dude wipes. If you're looking for a sponsorship, we're totally down. I think they're the greatest thing in the world. So anyway, all right. So let's get into Maine. You lead off. Tell me what your thoughts are. If you have any videos or anything, I can go ahead and play those. Go ahead.
So, I mean, this is one of those. Obviously, it's a horrible situation. There's a lot of things to unpack with this. That, to me, like the biggest thing that screams out for this is mental health awareness, but also the lack of suitable treatment options. And then obviously the taboo with like, oh, I have some type of mental disability or some issues, and the taboo of actually going to get help. Now, the other part of that is you try and go get help, and then people just shove pills down your throat and don't actually solve the problem. They just give you a very temporary solution that's probably more harmful with whatever chemicals they're giving you. So, at least from what we know so far, was he a National Guard reservist or is an Army reservist? That
I don't know the answer to that question. It's screaming to me National Guard, but that doesn't mean that that's accurate.
So he's a reservist or National Guard of some type. I like this. Also brings another point of, I know when I was in, everybody was screaming for lowering the standards, giving waivers for certain things, of allowing everybody to go in. So, like, that's another part that we'll get to. All right. So for the mental health piece of this, at least what we know so far, I don't know if it's fully facts. This may change, but an individual that was institutionalized for a couple of weeks, claimed to be hearing voices, and then also threatened to shoot up his command. To me, that's one of those, that is enough that, yes, he should have been institutionalized to get whatever help he actually needed and whatever he actually needed to be treated. But once you start physically saying, like, hey, I or you start voicing that I want to do this and I'm going to do a harmful act, and you start displaying or telling like, hey, I'm hearing these things, this is not normal, that should be enough of a red flag that a 2-week program is not going to solve that. And you're not going to get to a place that you can actually function in society. But that is the broader issue of all of this, is we have not spent enough time actually addressing mental health to figure out what people need, how to properly treat them, other than, oh, you get into institutionalized, here's some pills, now you're on your way. Then you have that firewall between the medical system and then the police and legislature, to where it's a very fine line between someone is depressed and they just need a little bit of help to, and it seems like in this case, there is enough issues that are happening that, yeah, there's a good chance he should not have access to firearms. There should have been something, and I don't know if this happened or not, of something with his unit to where like, yeah, you're not going to have access to anything. You need to go get the help you need, and you're not going to come back until all that is addressed. To where, to me, there was enough flags in all this that there needs to be, one, a more broader conversation about mental health and how to actually treat it in a whole of body, whole of body look at a patient, rather than here's pills. Well, maybe it's diet, maybe it's exercise, maybe they need to go talk with a therapist, group therapy, like whatever they need to make that whole of an individual actually more healthy. Then you need some type of system to where these people can be identified. But my worry with all this is that you're going to get a couple of doctors who lean a certain way, that they're going to be like, oh, well, all these vets, we're just going to write all of them off so none of them can have weapons anymore. Or folks that want more gun control are going to use this as a way to continue to try to limit the Second Amendment. So there is so many facets that are in this that it's going to be kind of hard to lay all of it out. But it's one of those, to me, this is mental health. This is very clearly a mental health issue, that there's a lot of flags that were not addressed or were not proper. I don't know if they were communicated to the correct people or not, but obviously there's stuff that was missed since these mass shootings continue to happen. And that is where the focus needs to be. Not because I think Kirby, the NSC spokesman, already came out and said, oh, we need to ban AR-15s and high-capacity magazines, whatever it is. And it's like, that's not the issue.
Right.
That is a tool that people can use. That is not the actual issue behind it. It is mental health, but no one wants to have those hard conversations.
Right.
And how to actually address that in an appropriate way for different situations. Because I don't care who you are likely going to go through some type of mental health crisis on wherever you hit on the spectrum. It could just be a little bit of depression, or it could be something as far as you're hearing voices. Now, we need to get to a point to where we can actually have this conversation and be like, you know what? One, you have to realize that you actually need help, which I know in my case that took about 8 years. So there's no set time, but you have to be self-aware enough to know I'm having some problems, I need to go get help, but you need to have the appropriate access to actually go and do it. Because I know even for my case for the VA, which I would never go to them, but we've asked them questions like, hey, well, what if we know some people that are having these type of issues? How do we get them help? And their answer is always like, oh, yeah, we're here to help. We want to do something. Like when you ask them, like, okay, can you do these 3 things? They're like, oh, no, sorry, we can't do that. We've got our suicide hotline, and then they can come in and be institutionalized. Like there's nothing in between. And I know I had a buddy that I served with that he was having some serious issues to where I thought he was getting to the point that either he wanted to commit suicide or do something. So I called the VA in his area that I knew he was going to get help with. And I'm like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Like, this is what I'm concerned with. Is there a way that I can get this information to his therapist or his doctors in a anonymous way? So that way it's like they have more information and then they can make the best assessment and go talk with him and making sure he's coming in, getting the treatment he needs.
Yeah.
And they basically said, like, no, we can't, like, you can't, there's no way for you to get that information. And I'm like, okay, well, I've identified this without calling the police and having them show up. There's no access to actually let someone know, like, hey, I think there's an issue with this. And really, it's going to be someone who's closest to you, whether it's a spouse, family member, or one of your good friends who's going to see this, but there's no way to actually get that information to the correct people. But then there's the other side of it to where you don't want to be that person that calls that then gets them institutionalized because, like, you don't want them to hate you in the end, which...
Well, it's, you know, there's a lot to unpack there because, like, the way they treat soft guys and is different than the way they treat regular enlisted guys.
Mm-hmm.
And special forces, and whether it be MARSOC or whether it be team guys or Delta or whatever, I mean, even the SAR swimmers and EOD, whatever, anybody who sees an opportunity to put themselves in extended periods of danger, which creates high stress and can obviously formulate and generate PTS, or puts themselves in environments with concussive situations, repetitive concussive situations, which can create TBI. They tend to be special forces type guys or guys who put themselves in situations like that. And what they found is that it's not that a lot of former spec op guys are going out and doing mass shootings. A lot of former spec op guys are committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And because what they see and what they do is the tip of the spear, and they go in and they kind of take out the garbage before you have to turn over the dumpster. And they see things that a lot of people don't understand. But enlisted people see the same types of atrocities. They experience the same type of fire. They experience the same types of extended periods under high stress environments. And I think there is just to be completely just transparent, you don't care about the $5,000 used car after you've used it for 5 or 6 years. But you care about the $90,000 Tesla after 5 years and realize that you might have to replace it with a $15,000 battery because you're going to lose a $90,000 car. That's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And after you've put 120,000 miles on a five-year-old, car that you purchased that was already 20 years old, you kind of just don't care. And that's the one thing the military is going to have to realize is that whether it be Fort Hood, whether it be this situation, whether it be previous situations, and these guys have been on, and we'll pause this and come on to them in a second and hear about the brief, is that the United States military is not the civilian sector. No. And the HIPAA laws and the rights of veterans are signed away. And if this guy was known to the FBI, this is just yet again another situation where the Federal Bureau of Investigation has failed and dropped the ball for the American people, providing domestic security and protection for its citizens. How many of these do we have to have before we wake up and say, you know what? You can't do anything about guns. You can try.
Yeah, it's too far gone.
Good luck. This isn't Australia, folks. Mm-hmm. And you can do a gun buyback, but I'll tell you what, that M1 is never leaving that wall. and people are like, oh yeah, right. Some federal agent's going to show up and they're going to try to take it, and you're just going to give it to them. You want to fucking bet? You want to bet? You don't want to put that money on that table. And I'm not going to hurt an officer, but they're not getting that. And the only way they're going to get that is taking me out and putting me down, and not shoot me, because I'm not going to hurt any officer. I'm not going to hurt a federal officer, and I will comply. But that was my father's, and nobody's taking it. You want my AR? Okay. You make it the law. You write a law, and we'll have a conversation, right? But what you're not going to do is come in here and forcibly take, family heirlooms from me. Because then you're going to have to grab a Civil War saber. You're going to have to grab a bayonet. You're going to have to grab the grenades behind me that are cored out. I mean, all of these things have some sort of, the K-bar up on the wall, which is United States Navy K-bar, by the way, not Marine Corps.
So it's inferior.
Yeah, it's inferior. That's right, because it doesn't have I eat green crayons and I can't spell. So a logo on it. But, my point is that M1 has not hurt anybody without intent. And the AR behind me hasn't. And my Benelli downstairs and my HK and my Sig Sauers and every other weapon that I have. Mike has been in my house. He has a weapon within 5 feet of him every moment he's in my house. And they have hurt nobody. You're not going to get the guns. But you must address the mental health crisis in this country. And I'm not saying, and I want to be clear, that we need to open up the Camarillo State Hospital again. Mm-hmm. But we need to open up the Camarillo State Hospital again.
One thing I do want to go back to when you said the difference between SOF and then regular units, that I'm now at a point to where I have lost more friends because of suicide than we did in Afghanistan.
Yeah, absolutely. 120%.
So like that disparity is one of those that it's like, we obviously have an issue that we aren't addressing. And then now with more of my previous work, I think in the past 2 years, we've had 4 people commit suicide. And a lot of them, it's as soon as they stop working, they get out of that community and now they're lost. They lost that sense of purpose. They don't know what to do. And then that's it. They make their choice. So the more readily access that they have to mental health, but I still think the biggest thing with the military, and I don't know if it was like when you were in, the taboo of trying to get help.
Oh, yeah, dude.
God awful.
Horrible.
And I know when my guys came back from Afghanistan, when you do your little checklist, when you come back, make sure like, oh, you're good mentally, right? And if you don't say yes, you don't get to go see your family.
That's right.
Don't, so
that's right.
They get their check in the box, and then they kick you off, and then they never care again.
Yeah.
Because I think I said this before. I know when I got blown up and I had treatment at Bethesda, I was asked if I had a TBI. Of course, I said no, and I was never checked for it again, which now I'm finally going back and getting checked for it. But it's one of those of you're going to ask someone who just got blown up, who is obviously hopped up on all kinds of drugs right now just to try to keep them comfortable. Like, oh, do you have a TBI? Like, of course I don't. Like, I'm a Marine. We're already have a few screws loose to begin with.
Right.
But, like, that's something that they're just like, oh, they got their check in the box, and now we're going to move on. Instead of developing a program like, hey, how do we actually help people? And obviously, they're going to have to do this on a much bigger scale for the civilian community.
Yeah.
But that's the conversation to be had, not just, oh, let's just ban this AR and everything's going to change. No, it's not. Because if you want to go to London, they have mass stabbings all the time.
All the time.
You're going to find a tool if you get to that place to where you have voices telling you to do it, or you're so messed up you don't understand what you're doing. You're going to use whatever tool around you that you can find, and you're going to commit these acts. So it's not the objects, it's the people that we need to start caring about. And it just seems like we've gotten so far from caring about people that that's what we need to get back to. And I don't know if there's a good answer of how to actually.
Yeah, you don't out process them until they're taken care of. And that's the problem with the United States military. If somebody sections out, if somebody is obviously separated under a medical condition, whether that be chronic headaches, whether that be missing limb, whether it be, they need a full psychological evaluation before out processing. You created them. You don't get to treat them like a used car and leave them by the side of the road. I want to make sure everyone understands, just because this guy was a veteran, this isn't the way veterans vocalize their pain. They don't go out and murder people. It's because most of them have had the unfortunate situation of, especially being downrange, of doing some of those atrocities, and their soul won't allow them to cope with the pain of it. And because it is an inhuman act, and I'm not going to bring it back to Harry Potter, but your soul rips apart when you take a life. And I don't care who you are. And if you don't, and if there's guys that I knew in the military that they would, when they took a life and they popped their cherry, were, yeah, man, that's fuck yeah. And I'm like, whoa. because that's the fucking guy you watch out for.
Yep.
You watch that animal mother type guy and you're like, dude, you got a taste for it and you liked it. Now you're a concern. You're a threat to the unit. So anybody that takes a life or anybody who has taken a life will tell you that it's jarring, it's impactful, it rips the soul, and it's not something that, you know, you can be proud of doing your job, and when you're in the moment, you're kind of like, get some. But once you get some and the lights go out and the demons come,
it's something you never want to experience.
Yeah, ever. You know, and that's why I always know when someone's full of shit, right? Because when they're like, yeah, man, got some. And you guys know I've talked about Dan Gallagher, Chief Gallagher from the SEAL teams. I don't know Chief Gallagher, never met him. I respect him by the utmost for what he did for the teams, and he's SEAL, and he automatically earns my respect. But that guy has demonstrated some behavior that he enjoyed what he did to a point where he liked it a lot. And, you know, good. We need warriors. Evil has to fight evil, especially when it comes to terrorism and such. But when you ask these people to come home and matriculate back into society, how do you turn the evil off? It's not an easy thing. So I think the United States government needs to stop sending these people back in a civilian pop without addressing the issues that were created as a government employee, number one. Number two, red flag laws, no. That's not the solution. You need to have a place to put people who are psychologically unstable. And right now, we don't have that. We have nothing like that. You have outpatient care with psychotropic drugs and a once-a-week conversation at best outside of the military, if you've got great insurance, with a healthcare professional that has absolutely, with no equivocation, no fucking idea what those people went through or what they're going through. It takes a criminal psychologist to understand and identify mass shooters, not a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist. They are completely two different things. I don't want a person who does domestic violence or how to have a better relationship with your wife talking to mass shooters. I want a criminal psychologist sitting there and talking to people who are flagged by the FBI and evaluating them as a threat assessment or not. And then immediately once they are, I'm sorry, you may not like this. Red flag the person, not red flag the guns.
Yes.
That's the solution. Fix it. You knew this guy. Every mass shooter, from Uvalde to Sandy Hook to this to the nightclub shooting, have been identified and interviewed by the FBI. Don't give me, hey, just tell. Hey, tell someone. Tell somebody. Tell someone. We have. You've investigated these people. You've been in their home. This guy made an open threat against his unit, and he's Army Reserve, by the way. Mm-hmm. You've got the indicators. You've got the signs. And you guys are like, well, we're going to go ahead and monitor them. No, you're not. These things will continue to happen. And I'm telling you this. You can go ahead and take away the gun. But killing somebody, I just want to be very graphic here. Killing a human being is hard. It's not an easy thing. It's not. I've seen people get in 85-mile-an-hour wrecks and survive. That's a lot of G's. I've seen people fall in parachute accident, including myself, that should have killed them, pulling 35 G's with borderline death. This guy walked into a fucking bomb. A bomb. Right? Not a he didn't stub his toe on a freaking end table. This guy was blown up, is how he describes it, and he survived. Killing human beings is hard. And it is a process that is difficult. And killing someone with an AR-15 is, sure, you may be able to go ahead and effectively do it faster. But this guy was a firearms instructor. This guy was trained by the military, and reservist or not, he still went through active duty boot camp. He still understands basic combat techniques, hand-to-hand combat, some basic explosives. He knows how to handle himself with a knife or even a broomstick. and you put him in a target-rich environment like that, in a bowling alley, where essentially you're going out an emergency exit up the lanes or you're going out the front door, and you control one of 3 major exits, and the other 2 obstacles like the guards and the pins and everything else that most people wouldn't think to run down the lane, and the oil and the wells. There's not many exits. It's a target-rich environment for a guy like that. I don't care if this guy had an M1. I don't care if he had a 9mm Beretta. Well, maybe not Beretta, but he had a Glock.
Yeah.
He's going to kill 20 people. No matter what. He's going to kill 20 people. You're just not going to get out of that situation. And if you think that 16 rounds is less effective than 30 rounds, it's all about the skill set of the individual. And that's where these kill ratios get high, is based upon the ability of the shooter. You want to challenge that at all, or?
No, the only place I was going with that is understand that until the government, whether it's the lowest level or the federal government, comes up with some kind of solution to help with mental health crisis, this is going to continue.
Yeah.
So what I would urge folks to do is have that hard conversations with your family on, like, hey, if this happens, what would you do?
Yeah.
Because I know, obviously, slightly different situation. Growing up, the Terry Schiavo case.
Yeah.
When that happened, my parents sat us down and like, okay, I understand, because I think I was maybe 12 at the time. Like, this is what's happening. What would you want to have happen if you become in a vegetative state to where it is unlikely that you're going to come out and have a normal life? So we had that hard conversation of, all of us went around and said, what would we want to have happen? Similar to this of, and I know like my wife and I have talked about it, like, if something like this happens, what are you going to do?
That's right.
Have some type of plan so your family knows, or if you're out with friends, where is that exit? Where would you go? Where would you hide? It takes 3 seconds to look around and being like, exit, I can hide. If you don't want to carry, look around, like, what's something that I can grab to distract the shooter, so we have a chance to get out of, are you going to run? Are you going to hide? Are you going to fight? Like, what are you going to do? Have those conversations, so when this actually happens, you're going to go back to muscle memory. So if you've never had that conversation and you just freeze, you're not going to be able to do anything for yourself. So it sucks. It sucks that we've got to this point, but until we actually address mental health and work towards a solution, it's something that we're going to have to deal with. So I would just urge folks that have some type of plan wherever you go. It doesn't matter where it is, because it can happen anywhere. What would you do? How would you react? And just make sure your family has as prepared as they can be.
A lot of people talk about situational awareness. Situational awareness is absolutely important and imperative. Mike's seen me in the restaurant. I sit in the same position every single time. And unless somebody's carrying that I know, I will never sit anywhere else. There's another Mike that carries constantly. The sheriff comes in, he carries. And if there's another vet there who I know who carries, I'll feel very comfortable with letting them watch my 6. Otherwise, I check everybody who walks into a restaurant. I mean, Mike's seen me there. The moment I walk in, I'm checking every table. I'm checking every single person. I actually go behind the counter and I look in the back. I mean, I check everywhere, and there's a reason for it. And it doesn't make me any less susceptible to somebody coming in and firing, because if you're the first person that they're aiming at, you're probably going to go down. And that's just the way it works. But I ensure that where I sit, that where I am at, line of sight is a challenge to get to me. There's a reason why I sit right where I sit in that diner. And the only reason is the pole.
The pole, yep. The metal pole.
That's why I sit there. Because I know that is going to limit his shooting capability to 2/3 of his capabilities. It takes up 2/3 of my side profile. And the chance of him hitting me is smaller because of that pole. And if he has to step in a situation left or right, he's going to put himself in a disadvantage. One is that there's a table right there, and on the right side, there's going to be people who can step up and grab him. So my goal is that if he wants to engage with me, he's going to have to put himself in a disadvantage by sidestepping, which is going to ensure that he brings right into my sights, and I'm going to put him down like a fucking clown.
Well, you're also going to have to race Mike and myself, and that is probably one of the most well-protected diners.
Yeah, you have no idea
out there. But
anybody comes in there, they're in deep trouble. They're in deep trouble. They've got rounds coming from multiple angles at high velocity everywhere. But the point is that here's the thing: is a lot of people say, I don't want to go out, I don't want to survive, I don't want to go. Listen, the chances of you getting hit by this is interesting. You may not know this or not, but I've had to brandish my weapon one time being concealed carry. One time. And trust me, that alleviated the situation immediately. Mm-hmm. And I had two guys coming at me. You guys remember the story? They cornered me up on the freeway. One of them put a 45 in front of my car. The other guy side blocked me in traffic, and they came out of their car with weapons. And I simply opened my vehicle, stepped to the side, was in the crook of the door, and I reached down and I touched my hip and said, if you take another step, I'm going to fucking kill both of you. And guess what? As soon as I put my hand on that firearm, guy's got a gun, he's got a gun. The guy took off. You guys saw the video. He freaking flew off. And I started recording the whole thing. Cops came, put my hands up, had my firearm on the top of my car. They came up. Where's your firearm at? I told them. They said, fine. Had the conversation, patted me down, asked me what happened. And they said, you can grab your firearm, secure it. I did. They said, have a nice day. Did you break leather? I said, no, I did not. They said, great. You didn't break leather. And you're free to go. And he went up to both the guys in the car and said, you're so lucky that this guy knew what he was doing. Otherwise, you would be dead. Because if this was a first-time carrier, he would have shot you both. If this wasn't a person who understood that the threat was alleviated, that you weren't carrying a firearm and he had the advantage, you'd both be dead. You guys are idiots. Cop just straight up called the guys idiots. But you want to look at the percentage of being in a shooting, mass shooting. Well, here's my story. We lived in Littleton, Colorado. We were 1.5 miles from Columbine. 1.5 miles. We were in Aurora. That night, I was working on 88th and Iliff at a Game Crazy store when that shooting happened in Aurora, when that Batman movie came out. I worked at the Sila Vista Mall in El Paso, the Bath and Body Works on the second level. I was the district manager for all of those stores in New Mexico, Arizona, and Southern Colorado. That's 3 mass shootings, 3 of them. We just had a mass shooting here in Virginia, which was just a little bit away. So yes, they happened. And I wasn't carrying for any of them. Now, I carry 24 hours a day. I take a shower, and I have a gun 3 feet from me.
Oh, yeah, I got my wheelchair gun.
Yeah. There's no way. Like the most vulnerable place you can be is in the shower. You're wet, you're naked, you got no weapon, and it's slippery. The best place to have a gun in your house, and when a break-in takes place, you better have some protection with you at all times. I always do. The next is the bathroom. That's a very vulnerable place to be. Your legs are probably asleep if you're like most guys.
Your legs are asleep? You want a little tear? Want a little tear come down for you?
Well, your legs are always asleep, so I just figured you would qualify. Be like, yep, my legs are asleep too. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I just want to give you a little shit. For that.
I thought there was some, it's a big shit. That's why your legs are asleep. So, but the whole point is like you have to have situational awareness. But even in the most optimal situation, this thing is not designed to be a hero. It's the first thing they teach you in concealed carry is you're not a hero. That thing is designed to get you home. And your vehicle and your feet are the 2 most lethal weapons that you have for your survival. The only reason you use this is if you are in a situation that you have to defend your life. And I'm going to be honest with you. If there's an active shooter situation, my family's getting secure before I break leather. I'm not going to engage a shooter until my family's safe. And I will exfil from that situation and get my family safe, and then I will go back in. But anyone who sits here and goes, oh, you had a concealed carry and you didn't engage the enemy. It's like, wait a second. That's not what it's for. It's not what it's for. My firearm is to get my family safe. And I've told my wife, you get in the car, you drive off, you don't turn back, and you don't try to stop me, and I'm going back in. And she knows that. That's the plan. Get the kids to safety. Once I see them safe and secure and I see that thing get out of park and in the drive, then I'm going to go engage and I'm going to go to the fight. But I'm not doing that until they're safe. Now, if I'm alone, I'm breaking leather and I'm waiting for a reload, and then I'm going to fucking walk on target. And I'm going to close that gap between me and him or me and her as fast as humanly possible, beating my target. And the moment I see their eyes, that person is going to be put out and they're going to bed forever. That's it.
See, and I think a lot of this has to go back to, and I don't know if that's the case with this guy, is so many people think that life is a video game.
Yeah.
That they're going to get extra lives. None of this is real. There's no emotion to any of this.
Yep.
And that's 100% wrong. No matter what side that you're on, obviously the shooter is going to go through whatever mental illness he is to even do this. Then you have all the victims, their families, their friends. Right now, it's the police officers who, this seeming like a seemingly small town. I'm guessing most of those officers have never been in a two-way firing range before, and they're about to be.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that they're going through. Obviously, everyone else who's around there, who's sheltering in place, that now they have to deal with, like, hey, we don't know where this guy is. Is my house next? Where is he going to try to get to? I also have a feeling that Maine is probably one of the most protected areas as well. So if you try to get in some of those houses, it's probably not going to end well for this guy.
Right.
But now it's like, this isn't a game. And I think we also need to get back to a point to where we value life.
Yes.
That we aren't doing this for likes. We aren't doing this to get whatever social status you're trying to get. Just care about life. Understand that you're going to go through happy points and low points in your life. When you're in that low point, figure out whatever you need to get out of it. Whether that's go out in the woods, find that friend you can talk to, or if it gets to the point you need to go talk to someone, go do it so we don't have these things. But then also realize if you see that in someone else, be that person to step up and be like, hey, are you doing okay? Do you need to talk about something? Because that can be enough to push them to be like, you know what, you're right. So
the discussion, the AR-15 is not my weapon of choice.
no, it's too big, it's too long, you're not going to.
Not in that situation. Give me a 16-inch barrel. Give me an M1. Give me that right there. That thing right there, 150 yards, probably one of the most dead balls accurate and deadly weapons on the fucking planet, the M1 carbine. It's a 30 caliber. It does damage, and it's a very, very good weapon, and it shoots like a pistol. It's a great weapon. But that's not my preferred weapon. And all these people are like, oh, a handgun can't be successful against an AR-15. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You have no idea what you have to change your approach. You're not going to go muzzle to muzzle with an AR-15. Then you're a freaking moron. You pick your angle. You keep it close to your chest. You don't extend your profile. As soon as that person reloads, move to target. Sure step, sure footing, consistent motion forward, slight 3-degree bend in your step, and you go to town. And until that person sees you, until that shooter sees you, every step gives you the advantage, because an AR-15 has a swing rate. It's got to bring to your shoulder rate. What type of scope is he using? Is he using iron sights? Is he using a red dot? Is he using a scope? What is? There's so many different variables, but in that moment, in a CQC environment, I'll take a pistol versus an AR-15 any day of the fucking week.
Absolutely. And I can't tell what kind of optic it has on it because this picture is too fuzzy, but he had one to where,
hold on,
you've got to look down those sights. And yeah, say that's really fuzzy, but
it looks like he's got an ACOG, or not an ACOG, but it looks like he's got a scope on it.
yeah. But it's one of those, whatever scope he has is going to have some type of magnification to where he has to be dead on what he's seeing.
Yeah.
Or if he's too close, he's just seeing fuzz.
Yeah.
He's not really identifying what it is. So yeah, in this case, 100%, like, and granted, that's what almost everyone carries anyway, is pistols. But yeah, just because you have an AR, you have more rounds in your magazine, doesn't mean it takes 2 seconds to reload. So yeah, the whole argument that AR is the devil and that's the issue is completely ridiculous.
2% of 3% of 2022 shootings were used with an AR-15. Over 66% were a handgun. And how do you know that? Because the other 23 some odd percent, they were unidentified. Shotguns are more often used than an AR-15. And the thing is that when they say there's 589 mass shootings, it's a lie. A mass shooting, okay, when you define mass shooting, Mikey, what do you, when you hear mass shooting, what do you think? Like, describe who's the victim, what's the event when you hear mass shooting?
When I hear mass shooting, I mean, I'm going double digit victims, whether killed or wounded. And then obviously, like, to me, it's going to be it's not going to be in like a house. It's going to be at some type of event, a restaurant, somewhere where there's a larger gathering.
Right. But most mass shootings are actually gang shootings. Those are shootings. A mass shooting is considered 4 or more casualties, and a casualty is not a death. Mm-hmm. So that happens in gang cities: Chicago, Baltimore, Miami, Detroit, Atlanta. Those are mass shootings. Mm-hmm. So you can't go ahead and say that. Now, when you look at mass shootings, which is going into malls, going into soft targets, gun-free zones, those are down. We saw more of those go down in COVID simply because a lot of these massive conglomeration of places were shut down and closed. And when we lifted the restrictions, we started to see them happen again, which shows you that it's not the gun. It's a state of mind. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity. When the situation was shut down and these businesses weren't full of people and ripe targets, mass shootings stopped at this level. Now, city shootings didn't stop. Violence didn't stop. But mass shootings on that scale stopped because you took away. So what do? You need to make these places inaccessible. There's 2 arguments that I have. And I will talk to anyone. Call the show right now. If you are anti-gun, call the show and I will fucking destroy you on 2 arguments. One is, tell me what happened during COVID with mass shootings, which I'm talking mass casualties in malls, in offices, in nightclubs. What happened to them? They almost went down to 0. And then the next argument I'm going to have is people saying the Second Amendment is for a militia. So let me get this straight. The Founding Fathers wrote the Bill of Rights just after fighting a tyrannical rule where a government oppressed its people, and decided to make 9 amendments and in the Bill of Rights that were all about limiting government's power. And they decided to go ahead and upend it by creating the Second Amendment, which ensures that the government has a standing army that can tyrannically rule the people. That's your fucking argument? I will destroy anyone. Colin Noir is probably the best at arguing these points. And honestly, he gets too involved. Those are the 2 arguments. Give them empirical data that protecting the situation, eliminating people in those soft target areas, stopped mass shootings. We saw it. Then you have to protect those sources and make those no longer soft targets. You put in armed security, you put in armed guards, you allow a bowling alley. I don't see people doing freaking jelly shots and belly shots and keg stands. Let them carry. Let people carry in the areas like this. And I promise you, you will eliminate these shooters.
So going back to the point that you made about during COVID is that we locked down, we basically forced people into a mental health crisis.
Yep.
And people forgot how to act. They forgot how to go out and be in society and be a productive member. And now you have so many folks that have gone down the drain that, now once you opened up, you're going to have more of this. But then they're also being glorified by the media and social media. And as soon as this happened, the first thing I thought is like, okay, when I go to Netflix, what's on the top 10? Most of it is some type of serial killer or some type of shooting that happened or something in that realm that people will go and watch. And they are glued to it. That is the thing that everyone wants to see. And I'm sure at some point they'll make some Netflix thing about this now. But like that's what they're putting out there with their propaganda. And it's like, okay, why don't we go back to telling the good stories to where people are helping each other, not always the dark side of what's actually happening.
Yeah. Timothy Joyce makes a good point. He says it's illegal to carry a gun where you consume alcohol. That's not necessarily. It's not necessarily
at
true.
A bar, but it's the food to alcohol ratio.
That's correct. So, more importantly, is that if you're drunk and intoxicated and carrying and use your firearm and it's negligent, you're going to face some jail time. But you're right. In a ballpark where they serve alcohol, you can't go ahead and carry. You can't go to a bar and carry most places.
Yeah, unless it's technically a restaurant, which some places get around that.
That's correct. So, like, as being concealed carry holders, we know where we can and can't go, and you're absolutely right. But it shouldn't be a law. Because here's the thing. Here's the number one argument. Has that establishment protected me and ensured that I am not going to be prey victim by disarming myself? And the answer is no. So guess what else is illegal? Going into a place and murdering people. And you would much rather have me carrying drunk than drunk and disarmed. I promise you. In a situation when I don't care who you are. I don't care what age you are. If you are in a mass shooting, you're not praying to God. You're not praying for your mommy. In that situation, the only thing you want is a firearm of equal proportion, equal velocity, and equal rounds to protect yourself. Every single person is, I want a gun. I want a weapon. I want something. This whole run, hide, fight bullshit, I'm sorry. I don't agree with it in any way, shape, or form. If you see that person and they have a firearm, running, hiding, and then fighting isn't the option. If that person is coming into your area, I've told my kids this, you line up against the wall, you each grab erasers, rulers, books, scissors, anything you can, fucking bottles of glue. And the moment that that person steps into that door and they lift that weapon, every single child throws everything they have and bum rush, and everyone gets on top of that person. And I promise you, 30 children, yes, even fucking 5-year-olds are going to be able to bring that man down. Because here's the option. Hide in the closet. Look at Sandy Hook. Look at those teachers that were riddled with rounds and those kids still died. You guys, running is not going to help the situation if that person sees you. If it's the first beginning part of that and they're walking in and they start clacking rounds, yeah, get away, run, get out of the situation. But trust me when I say this, once that person has narrowed their target selection down, any movement, you're going to get popped. You're not going to outrun a bullet. And if you look at the Vegas shooter situation, all those people, God, it's so sad. They ran away, and that was the worst thing that they could do. They should have run towards the shooter. The moment he was at an elevated position, you want to reduce his angle of fire. And when you run out, all you do is level his weapon. You want to reduce the angle. And they didn't know this because they were civilians. But you ask Mike and I, we would know what to do because we were trained what to do, or we've been in those situations. We need to educate people. We need to teach them repeatedly what to do. And yes, it's crazy, but people sit there and go, how can kids live this life? How can you put kids through this? Israel does it all the time, man. They are constantly surrounded by this. We are not the only nation in the country where people use terror against other people. In fact, it happens everywhere. It happens in England. 96 people were stabbed in a Tokyo subway, for God's sakes. We've seen vehicles run through parades. People will find a way to kill. The only way to stop it is to stop that person. That's it.
And I think one thing to note with that is that I love having our police and our sheriff, but the odds of them being in the correct location to do something about it is negligible. So the only person that's actually going to be able to help protect yourself and your family is you. So you have to decide, what are you willing to do to protect yourself and your family, and what tools and mindset are you going to have to make that happen? So,
Bushy was here last night, and I gave Bushy some credit. Seemed like to be a decent human being, and in this case, brings up a comment which is interesting. So it says, I'm pretty sure men fantasize more about stopping an active shooter than they do about women.
I pray all the time that I never have to be in that situation, and that my family would never have to go through that. We never have to deal with that, because as Matt already said, when you actually take a life, it changes you.
Yeah.
And you can't get that person back. So, I mean, I wish like those would, like we would never have to talk about that, but it's a reality because we have true evil in this world. That is something that we have to deal with, and you have to prepare yourself for that. The fact that you say that we fantasize about that, I'm like, every time this happens, I'm like, you know what? I'm glad I'm not there. I'm glad my family doesn't live there, and that I feel like we generally live in a safe area. But guess what? That area probably felt really safe until that happened too.
That's correct. And you know, you fantasize about being a rock and roll star when you're a kid. You fantasize about, you know, being at the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs, 2 strikes, bases loaded. And that's what you fantasize about. Or you fantasize about women. I think it trivializes the situation when you say that somebody fantasizes about putting themselves in an active shooter situation. In no way, shape, or form do I ever want to be in an active shooter situation. But just because that's the case doesn't mean that I'm not going to plan for contingencies. And once again, my weapon is designed to get me home safe. I'm not to play hero. I'm not trying to engage. If I see a robbery, I'm not going to stop it. I won't. If someone gets carjacked, I'm not getting involved. It's not my job. It's not my job to do that. It's not my job to protect that person. If someone's getting beat, very well may jump in and try to help that person. But more than likely, in every situation, unless my life is threatened, I'm going to go home. And all the world should lament the day that I'm not able to get home is the day that fantasy becomes reality. And I don't think it's wrong to be prepared. I don't think it's wrong to practice. I don't think it's wrong to train, because you're not going to be a rock and roll star, but you still maybe pick up your guitar and go ahead and practice.
And I think all this goes back to, do you value life? Because if you value life, you wouldn't be doing that to someone else. You wouldn't put yourself in that situation and fantasizing about being in a mass shooting. Like, I don't want to die. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I would. But yes, I'm going to prepare if that happens. And I'm also, if I'm going to a location to where, like, you know what, I'm going to a movie theater or a bigger event, like, that's going to change the calculus of what I carry and how much ammo I carry.
That's right.
But I'm also going to realize, like, I'm going home, I'm going back to my farm, and I'm going back to my wife. Like, that's what I fantasize about, is being on my farm with my wife, not being at some mass shooter or getting my 15 minutes of fame after something like that happens.
Yeah, you know what? Because that's the thing that would take place. The moment if that did happen, first thing's going to happen is I'm going to notify 911, and I'm going to tell them I'm armed, and I'm going to give them my description, okay? And I'm going to do something that separates me from the rest of the crowd. Probably going to turn my hat backwards. Whatever it would be, to ensure that I separate myself. When those police officers come in, they can identify me. And if I have to engage with somebody, I'm not sticking around after the investigation, and I'm not talking to the press. I don't want that. I don't want that recognition. And what's interesting, and Mike may have experienced this, there's people out there who want to get involved with military people. They want to get involved with people who have worked in special forces or worked with special forces, and they want to test themselves. And I've seen people try to start shit with people like that, and they got something to prove to themselves. And you just don't understand how people think. But to answer your question, do I fantasize about a mass shooting? No. Do I practice and train and create muscle retention in situations where that could happen? Yeah, but I also train in situations of somebody breaking into my house. I also train in situations if I'm in a vehicle and how do I draw my weapon. It's a tool. And it would be like bashing a carpenter for, framing a house or putting up drywall. Firearms in my house are not weapons. They're tools. And I'm the weapon. They are just tools. So the guy's still at large.
Yep.
Police are, which baffles me. Because then he probably is out of state.
Well, and that's the big question. Is he out of state, or because of whatever training he got with the National Guard, which I don't know how much it is.
Army Reserve, right?
Army Reserve.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry. It's, little difference.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
I know, that's why I said
And I thought they said they found the vehicle not too far away. If he does have some type of training, they know they can track his cell phones, if he has an Apple Watch, any other kind of electronics that he has on. If he's smart enough to realize that he is a hunter and he has a training, he's going to be out in the backwoods somewhere, and that's one of the most dangerous places you're going to go, is going into somebody's backyard that they know that they've hunted, and they know every avenue of approach, where to set up. Like, that is extremely dangerous for the law enforcement that has to go in. Now, granted, the FBI and some of these law enforcement, like, they're going to have drones, they're going to have helicopters that have FLIR, they're going to be able to go and search a lot of these areas. But still, like, I am kind of surprised they haven't found him yet, but it's one of those, when it does happen, it's not going to be a good situation. A lot of people's lives are going to be at risk. So I hope they are able to do what is necessary to end this in the safest way for the officers.
Yeah, it's not this. They obviously have HRT teams. That's why FBI takes over these things. It's not going to be civilian police. They're not qualified to do this. And you may have a couple SWAT guys, but have HRT do this. That's their job. They're highly trained in this type of thing. And you're not going to fight this guy in his area. You're going to find out where he's at. You're going to isolate him. You're going to put a perimeter around him of a few miles. And then you're slowly going to tighten the noose and have a drone spot this guy, and then narrow it down. And either it's going to be a waiting game, but I seriously doubt that this guy right now is trying to draw attention to himself. He's going to try to make himself small. He's going to try to disappear, and it's not going to work. But the interesting thing is, can you imagine if you're in the mind of a shooter that most of these end up with somebody taking the gun and turning it on themselves, or turning it to the officer so the officers shoot him? Mm-hmm. This guy fled. So this doesn't, in my eyes, if an FBI psychological profile expert was doing this guy sounds more like a serial killer than a mass shooter who's trying to destroy other people because of his own torment and pain. This guy's purposeful. He has an exit strategy. You don't create exit strategies on the fly and get away. There's too much chaos. Police were at the scene in a relative time, and he had fled, and he's engaged in multiple targets since then, which leads me to believe that this guy has more of a DC sniper type attitude, that he's going to go and take as much as he can until he's finally stopped. That should terrify people. That should scare the living shit out of people, because I don't think this guy wants to die. I think he wants to kill as many people as he can, and I'll be surprised if he doesn't lay down his weapon when he's confronted. He might go out in a hail of bullets, but if he wanted to do that, he would have stayed at the bowling alley. Just my personal opinion. I'm not a psychological profiler, but I've spent enough time at Holiday Inn Expresses to come up with the opinion. Folks, thanks for watching the Matt and Mike show. We are going to be live Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I think we're going to do 9:30 next week and kind of try it a little bit. Cherry. Oh, here's one thing. And since we're really good on time and we've done well, is there a reason why he did this yet?
Not that I've heard, but
here's the problem: is you haven't got the manifesto from the trans shooter, and you know why? Because I guarantee in it was disparaging Christians, disparaging heterosexuals, the patriarch and the matriarch, and it would have done damage to trans people everywhere. So they're trying to protect the narrative, and they don't want to add to it. Now, they don't care about white Christians, right? They don't care about not talking about when the shooter's black or Arabic or anything else, which if you actually look at mass shootings over the last 10 years and look at the pictures, it's a very in proportionate balance to people of color versus white people. White people make up a large majority of the population. Then why are half of the shooters people of color? Because crazy is indiscriminate. It's not based on somebody's color. It's not based on somebody's religion. When you're insane, that's the classification you need to worry about, not somebody's color of their skin. But when you look at this, they're not releasing the manifesto, and I'd be very surprised if we even see it. But I promise you, this guy, you will have all of it released. Everything. You'll see photos of his house. You'll see the police tape in front of the area when they go to his home. You'll find the letters. They'll be online. You'll see pictures of him with his weaponry, maybe at a target range. And you have to ask yourself the question, why? Because the narrative is that people who have firearms are white Christians who are Trump supporters and who are military-style people. And the narrative supports that this is what we have to do to get the guns, is to take them away from people like this. Do yourself a favor and watch for that, because I promise you this will be all over the place, and it will be it'll be broadcast across all the news. Mike, last word for you, buddy.
Well, and I just saw a tweet from Chuck Schumer where he again is calling for we must do more to stop the gun violence in our country. It's like, well, there, Mr. Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
You're in the position to do that. So instead of using all of our tax dollars to fund yourselves and fund your cronies, maybe use it to help our citizens come up with programs to help mental health, to help us get to a point to where we actually value life again, and that there's actually something we can do. One plug that I will do, if you're a vet and you are having some mental health issues, look up Home Base. They're out of Boston. They've got some programs both for regular military and SOF units. If you feel you're at that point, just look into them. It may be something to consider.
Bushy says his browser history indicated he watched a lot of Joe Rogan. I don't know where that's at, but it doesn't matter. I promise you he also looked at a lot of porn too, because that's the profile. He probably even played video games, violent video games too. I mean, there's a lot of connectivity. But the one thing that you can't ever discredit that every one of these mass shooters have, they all suffered from mental illness. That is the one consistency. Not even the guns are the same. It's mental illness. That's the consistent thing. It's not that they watch Joe Rogan. It's not that they're white or black or Republican or Jew or Gentile. It's that they have mental problems. And we have shut down mental hospitals. There is no more inpatient. Unless you're a danger to yourself and you openly admit that, you're not going on a hold. And it's not going to be an extensive hold. They turn and burn these people like car washes. We need inpatient care. We need long-term care. And it needs to be regulated. It can't be like the times of the 80s where it's Thorazine and electrical shock treatments. That shit's got to stop. But you have to protect society. And we already have the most incarcerated country on the planet. The United States has more incarcerated people than anywhere else on the planet. That's for crime. And then you have freedom. What's the in-between? What's the in-between? We have the freest country in the world. We have the most incarcerated people. There is a middle ground where people need mental health. We've got the physical assaults. We've got the physical action taken care of, and we have the inaction taken care of. Where is the possible action? Those people who have no connection to reality, who have no empathy, those people who have that disconnect, where do they go? It's not prison and it's not completely free. We need to find the middle ground. And the middle ground were these hospitals. And if we don't institute these hospitals again and allow us to keep people in a mental institution indefinitely, if they are in this state of mind, which this guy most certainly was, SSRIs are going to make it worse. SSRIs are the worst possible thing to give to somebody who's suffering from this type of stuff, because it's a time bomb. And without 24-hour care and guidance, you're having people who are a part of the problem try to solve the solution. It's like having the government balance the budget. They're the problem. And that person's brain is the problem. And you're giving them the keys for their own solution. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It just doesn't make any sense. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, guys. Go over to the Don't Unfriend Me Show. You go to thedumbshow.com, pick up some hats, some shirts, some coffee. Great coffee. Amazing coffee. Mike,
Maybe I'll have to try some out. I don't know. I'll have to broaden my horizons a little bit.
I'm going to order you a mic flag for your mic. Get you taken care of there. Your shirts are on the way, so yes, we can stop promoting Harry Potter and Carhartt, although there's nothing wrong with Carhartt and Harry Potter. We will be back on Tuesday, next Tuesday with Mike and I, and then we'll have a show tomorrow. I have a recorded show that I've got to get done. I had to skip it yesterday. I'm going to do my best, and we'll be able to see you guys Friday night, and I'll have a recorded show for you. So God bless. Thanks for watching the Don't Unfriend Me show. We will see you next time.
Yep, everybody stay safe out there.
Yeah, and Froggy, stay small. See you guys. Bye.
Well,